Welcome to Canada's Entrepreneur, where we talk to the entrepreneurs who are making it happen across Canada and deliver the news, trends, knowledge, and opinions from entrepreneurs and business influencers across the country.
Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today on Calgary's podcast is Jocelyn Holland, who is founding partner of Holland Licensed Interior Design. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, then let's talk a little bit about the company first of all, and tell me just a little bit about what you guys do.
Sure. So we are based in Alberta. Our head office is in Calgary, and we also have offices in Edmonton. And we specialize in commercial and interior design in workplace and in healthcare.
Okay, then, and a little bit of the history there. When did it start?
We founded our company in 2011.
2011. Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me a little of the history behind that. Like, what was behind the founding of the company and why?
Sure. So it's an interesting story. I founded the business with my sister, who is 3 years younger than me. And we had an interesting journey through design school. We both did the same thing. We both went to Mount Royal and took the interior design program here. And then we both ended up working together in the same architecture firm for the first portion of our careers. And she went away to Europe, came back, and in our late 20s, we decided to start our own business in commercial design. So we left that architectural firm and started our own business and worked our way from the ground up. And we now have we started as just the two of us, and now we have a business with 20 employees.
Wow. And tell me just a little bit of the background of where the interest in interior design come for you.
Well, we grew up in a very creative household. My father was in advertising when I was growing up, and I got exposed to the creative departments when I was, young kid. And my our mother, mine and Jamie, my business partners, our mother is an artist, a fine artist.
Oh.
And I think we just grew up in a very creative household and not really knowing what we wanted to do as we were growing up. Stumbled across an interior design and architecture program and realized that it was a world where we could, create things that were built. And I think it's just kind of clicked us both into what interior design is. And so we both jumped into the program and loved it and stayed with it as a career.
Where do you find the I guess, inspiration and the ideas? Where does that come from?
Well, when there's different sectors of design, there's residential design, there's corporate commercial design, there's healthcare and institutional. And I think depending on what segment of the market that you work in is different for each designer and where they pull ideas from. For us being in corporate and healthcare, we're very driven on data. So we are really inspired by organizations and their unique needs as we go through the process to hear what their needs are. We actually design, like that's where we pull our inspiration from, is from the organization itself. We really are driven by the data that we can collect for them and then help them build stronger, better businesses. So when we look at inspiration, right now, these days, we're very driven by hospitality principles. So we really look to, what are hotels doing, what are restaurants doing, and bringing that into workplace, interestingly enough, because we're seeing a really strong demand for that in new office spaces as people are being called back to work. And then we're also seeing the same in healthcare. We're really tuning into, different ways to approach what those spaces look and feel like.
So tell me what kind of unique or different types of things are we seeing in workplaces these days?
That's a great question. I think we're seeing, workplace is so interesting right now because in a post-COVID world, where we saw this incredible shakeup of how we work and why we work and where we work. We have really seen different cities doing different things and having different needs. Calgary particularly has seen a very strong, we call it callback to the office. So we're seeing a lot more organizations go back 5 days a week, where other cities we're still seeing a very hybrid model. And so a lot of the trends that we're seeing are accommodating what each organization is doing from a policy perspective. So, for example, if an organization still is on a hybrid policy, we are seeing, for example, that they might work from home Mondays and Fridays, but come into the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And their problems and how we design for them are different, because if you can imagine, if everybody's working at home on Mondays and Fridays, what are they doing when they come into the office? Well, they're meeting and they're collaborating. And so all of this empty office cubicle or cubicle space is no longer being used. So we're really having to work hard to reconfigure what it means to be back in the office in a post-COVID world. So we really look for understanding, what trends are happening to accommodate that new mindset.
Yeah. How different is it? I'm just curious, when you're designing, say, a workplace for different industries out there. Like,
Yes.
How different is it, say, an oil patch company compared to, say, an architecture firm or something like that?
Very different, and they have very different needs. And so we really take a lot of pride in how we early on in the design process, ask the right questions and analyze a company to make sure that we are pulling the right data out of the executives, out of the employees, to understand how they work, why they work. We call our process workplace mapping. And we really absorb that information, analyze the data, and we'll get totally different results from like an architecture firm to an oil and gas firm. So whether they're an office centric or open office, how many meeting rooms, how they meet, their acoustical requirements, those are always different for different types of sectors.
Now, may be an odd question, but what about the difference, like in age? Like,
Yep.
an employee in their 20s that are maybe just starting out or are very young in their career
Yeah.
want different things than, say, the 50-year-old that's been there 20 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah. We are doing a lot of studies generationally to understand the differences between each organizations and the generations that they house. One unique thing that we see for Gen Z, which is the upcoming age group that's coming into the workforce, is a real uniqueness for their group is a demand to be part of a community. And that is research that 2 years ago with COVID, we were having a really hard time understanding what this generation wanted within their space. But we see a really differentiation between, Gen X and a Gen Z. That Gen Z is actually demanding more of wanting to be part of a community than we had originally thought. So we're really designing to be a part of that. One thing that we're seeing across the board in all generations is there's no longer a want or a need for that tech startup aesthetic. Nobody's really interested anymore in the ping pong tables and the arcade games. People are demanding a different type of space, and that kind of startup aesthetic is no longer, interestingly enough, desired by the younger group that's coming into the workforce.
Yeah, that's cool because if you got a few years ago, that's all you were hearing, especially for
Yeah.
those tech companies, was like pool tables and foosball tables and stuff like that, games area for employees, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're seeing those areas underutilized now. So design teams are working harder to really understand how to bring these different generations together for that, that true sense of community. So how we do that really does differ by each organization, but we really try and bring the employees within that organization we really work with them to be involved in that process. We try not to tell them what they need. We try to hear what they are looking for and then design for it.
Yeah. Let's talk about being a business and a business owner in Calgary and in this province. What do you think some of the benefits are for being an owner here?
I think Alberta is an incredible place to be a business owner. I think there's so much talent here. There is so much opportunity. The networks here are incredible, the business networks, and we have learned so much just from, the cohorts that we're involved in. And we fully recognize how lucky we are to be here.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of from an operational point of view, and just the business environment, is it still a business friendly city province compared
Yes,
to what it was a decade ago?
100%. I think what's interesting is that our business, we really probably started ramping up our business in 2012, 2013. And that's when we saw, the crash in 2014 here in Alberta. So I would say for our generation of business owners, I think it's been ups and downs all the way along. So we've been pretty gritty and worked our way through it. I can't say that we have necessarily ever experienced, business just flooding in. We've always had to work hard for it, and we've always had to make the right connections and really, prove why we're the right fit for the project. So I think that that's slightly interesting for when we started our business, is that there have been a few significant events that we've had to, trial and error our way through.
Yeah. Now, when you look at the idea of an entrepreneurship, I'm just curious from your perspective and your sisters, what was the toughest challenge you had to overcome in starting a business?
Oh man. I think not knowing what we didn't know, because we were very young when we started our business. So many, fails, so many things that we've learned from. I think, starting young was an advantage because we didn't have a lot to lose, if that makes sense. And, I think some of our biggest challenges have been wanting to be, 10 steps further than we are, and having to really work to earn every single, stepping stone that we have gone through has been one of our, greatest success and biggest challenges at the same point, is really recognizing that entrepreneurship is hard work. It takes grit. It takes, willingness to learn, willingness to fail, willingness not to be the smartest person in the room. So I would say all of those things together have been, some of our greatest challenges and successes.
So why, from your perspective, why entrepreneurship as opposed to maybe the security, if you want to put it that way,
right,
of working for a company?
I think maybe it's part of, our DNA, to be honest. I think we were raised in a very entrepreneurship family. We, saw our parents, start many businesses and trialed those. And I think that it's just, part of who we are. I don't think there's any reason why to or not to be in a big organization working for an employer. I think it's just, in our spirit of who we are and gets us up every morning.
Yeah. Now, what advice would you give an aspiring young, 20-something who's looking at and thinking about being an entrepreneur? What advice would you give them?
Oh, I would say, don't be afraid to fail. You're going to do that lots. Learn as much as you possibly can. Get involved with communities of other people that are, in that entrepreneurship field, because there are so many questions and so many things to navigate and wade through when you surround yourself with a community. It can go a long way. Having my sister as a business partner was an incredible asset through the process because we were in it together. So all the late nights, there was always someone on the other end of the phone, working through things. So if you're working on it by yourself, I would say get yourself a community.
Yeah. Were there any times initially that you thought, oh, why am I doing this? And maybe I should just go back and
I don't think so. I think that it really, I think when you know that you're in the right place. And, I've had lots of low moments, but always known that I do plan to wake up the next morning and keep going.
Now, looking back at your career, are there any specific projects that stick out in your mind that for whatever reason that you just thought that was really a cool thing that we did?
Yeah, there's a few. I would say one that we worked on that was a real wonderful project is we worked with an organization called J5 here in Calgary, and they were looking for new office space, and I think they were a pioneer in Calgary in really looking at how to take their space for their 50 employees and kind of turn upside down the definition of a workplace. And they worked very hard to work with their own employees to hear what their needs were. And the founder, one of the founders, when I first met with him, said to me is, we're going to take, I think it was about 10,000 square feet of space, and we only need 8 workstations. And the rest will be total collaboration space and spaces that our staff need to do their best work. And I think that was one of the really rewarding project recently. And another one I'd mention is we recently completed a CFPCN project here in Calgary. And that was a few different clinics with the PCN that came together right across from the new cancer center here in Calgary. And that just opened a few months ago. And it's a really beautiful space and really redefines what healthcare should look and feel like in the public system.
Sorry, PCN is?
The Primary Care Network. Calgary Foothills Primary Care Network.
Okay, excellent. Now, obviously, one of the things about being an entrepreneur, it's a job that's constant, right? you never seem to be away from work in any way. But just curious of where does work-life balance sit for you these days?
Well, that one is near and dear to my heart as well. I am a mother with 2 young children, and I truly understand that you need to find when you work for yourself, you do need to find that balance, that work-life balance, especially when you're a mother or have a family. I think it's really important to know how to compartmentalize your time and really respect your time and know that you do not have to work till midnight every night to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Outside of obviously the family, what do you do to entertain yourself? Like what interests, passions do you have?
Yeah, we love camping as a family. Love getting out to the mountains. I think that's a real place for us for renewal and to get out of the city, to reset. We do that almost every single weekend. And that's been a huge part of being able to disconnect and then come back fresh on Monday morning.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Jocelyn, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that was Jocelyn Holland, who is founding partner of Holland Licensed Interior Design. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.